My Staff connects the right people and the right companies. Fast, friendly, and focused on results. From temporary staffing to executive recruitment, the My Staff team knows Nebraska business and delivers a job done right. Accounting talent is tough to find, but not for Lisa Waite. She has the pulse on the talent pool and delivers results. Save time, skip the struggle, and let My Staff partner for success. Visit mystaff.com to learn more. Whatever your hiring need or career move, My Staff is your employment partner for a job done right. Visit mystaff.com or call 402-614-1441. Because at My Staff, we're not just recruiters, we're partners in your success story.
To everyone who's ever Googled, "Can I cry at work?"
To everyone who has their former CHRO on speed dial.
To those with a strong HR team.
To the HR offices of one.
To everyone who needs to hear they don't need to go it alone.
And to our professional circle of trust. May our
policies be clear,
our glasses
be full, and our networks unbreakable. Welcome to today's episode. We're going to be talking about probably one of my favorite topics to think about in HR as a lonely island floating away on our little piece of driftwood, trying to figure out the latest policy or the latest investigation you're going through. And sometimes the first time you've probably had to deal with something that you just don't really know what to do. And you look around the room and there's not a lot of people you can maybe turn to based on the situation to look to for advice. So today we're going to talk about our experiences in our own islands and how we can use our HR community to build us up and make us stronger.
Jamie, one of my favorite social media videos out there is it talks about going into a room and looking for the adultier adult, right?
Love that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Who's the adult here? And usually in the workplace, it's HR, right? And so that feeling of loneliness and floating on the driftwood, like he so could have fit on the door, I'm just saying. Like just floating out there by yourself is because there's no other adultier adult in the room.
Yes.
And everyone's looking at you like you're the adultier adult. And that can be a very lonely place. So that's what we're talking about today. Jamie, do you have a super islandy moment in your work history where you felt especially buoyant? I guess in this island metaphor.
Right? Like I'm thinking, Tom Hanks out there in the middle of the island talking to his soccer ball that he had to. Wilson, help me. I think there isn't just one that comes to mind particularly for me. I think it's a multitude of things. And sometimes as an HR professional, there's always a first. Like when you think you've seen it all, then something else happens or a new piece of legislation is passed or there's something completely out of left field that you have to navigate. And again, to your point, everyone's looking at you to say, well, what do we do here? And so I think there's a number of them that come to mind, but a lot of times it's those firsts. And once you've gotten through a situation, you can reflect back on how you handled it or how you navigated, and things seem much easier and maybe less islandy. But for me, it's a lot of those firsts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that is a natural progression from what we were talking about in episode 2 about how off the chain everything is with the new and the everything being flipped on its head. It just perpetuates more of that feeling. I was thinking as we were preparing for today about how COVID, of course, isolated all of us. I had the memory of COVID today because I was thinking, I would rather go back to the COVID time than deal with this thing I'm dealing with right now. That's really saying something. But there was a severe isolation factor for everyone that we were talking about for the better part of 2 years, and that we're still our middle schoolers at that time are now graduating high school. My oldest was in that bucket, and how that affected their mental health and the way it's impacted everybody, what it feels like to be alone, and how that impacts you for the long term. And so that's
Yeah.
hard on HR professionals. So if you're out there as a person with an HR friend, you should probably check in.
Often.
And
Often.
with wine.
Yeah, and with wine, of course. Yes. Which, to your point regarding COVID and, all the kind of emotional toll that took even on our kiddos, I think about that often in terms of sometimes we have these situations that come our way that can feel islandy, right? Okay, I've got to get all the facts. I've got to figure this out. I've got to put a process together on how I'm going to address this. And then on the flip side, you're also managing maybe emotions of the people involved in such situation or who's going to be affected by the situation. But also you got to take care of your own. And that can feel a little bit difficult to do sometimes too, because you might be having your own emotional response to whatever it is you're having to deal with, or maybe just having to be the adultier adult in the room trying to figure it out. There might be some anxiety there too of navigating all the emotions that sometimes come with that too, and phoning a friend to be like, help.
Help. What's so funny is that I am super good at advocating for other people. Like, I will mama bear and hop in and just fight and advocate for what's right and, the right circumstances and what people need. But the minute it's about me as an employee, nope, complete breakdown, tears. We all have our annual reviews, and I just said to my bosses this time, "Do I cry every year?" Yes. Yes, you do. You cry every year. And it's because of that wall and that barrier and that loneliness. Like, even if you have other staff members with you on a team of HR people, there are certain places where you're still very much alone. And so, we don't want to dwell too much on the negative of that, but we're gonna talk about ways to solve that with your professional circle of trust, your PCT. Yep.
Love
Sorry,
that. It's a great acronym you came up with there. Love that.
song reference is strong right now. You done with PCT? Sorry, no.
We're going to ask you to tag your PCT at the end of this today.
That's right. Tag your PCT. Yeah, exactly. So that emotional load is real, and you're also looked to as HR to demonstrate and model the best case scenario for emotional regulation in the space. And you don't have the luxury of losing your shit about anything, really. You just have to kind of stay the course and go, and then cry in your car, right?
The post cry, the post event cry.
Yes, I
Love
once
that.
had a colleague who we came into work every day, a finance person and myself, we came into work every day and we're like, "Did you cry on the way to work? Did you cry on the way to work?" Yes. Yes, I did. It's your turn tomorrow. So, yeah,
That's so
absolutely.
funny.
Um, I think in this, island space, as we're developing our professional circle of trust, it's important to kind of talk about those people as an antidote to the loneliness that we're feeling, right? And in a space and in a society where everything's digital, everybody's online. We're all of our key marketers out there are trying to figure out how to get touch points with their clients and whatnot, and all of the rules that applied 5 to 8 years ago just do not apply now. And I think it's everything. It's business and marketing and professional organizations and nonprofits and all of the places trying to figure out how we can get better connection post COVID, right?
Right.
Remembering when COVID first happened, I was still in the office. Essential. We rotated and all of that. But every Friday I threw up a notice on LinkedIn, "Hey, anybody want to meet virtually for coffee on Friday mornings? Because I still need the interaction and I still
Yeah.
need my people. Anybody free?" And I made new friends that way. Just
Sure.
brand new friends
Sure.
that were just, colleagues on LinkedIn, that I had never met in person and that I have since met in person, which is just surreal, like people from out of my area.
Sure.
And so I kind of leveraged that technology piece to do that, but that was the antidote that I needed in the moment. That any of it, there was no agenda. We were just grabbing our coffee and sitting down at 10 a.m. on a Friday and saying, what do you need?
100%.
Where are we? What problems are you dealing with? And it could be the typical HR stuff. It could be, your personal dealing with the kids or how to order groceries or whatever it was. But we talked about so many things that helped me to not feel like I was alone.
For
One
sure.
of the people I met with a past president of our local SHRM chapter, Human Resource Association of the Midlands, which is hilarious, because being active in HRAM, we had never met. And so, Mike Bojanski, if you're out there, meeting you through that venue was just a delight and a joy. And I'm delighted that you're retired, but I miss you. And so, but that is the antidote. And the question then becomes, um, how do we do that? How do we structure and strategically as HR practitioners go out and build our professional circle of trust? And what is
Mhm.
that like?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's a great point. And I think there's seasons of our careers too, right? Like the community and the need that you have maybe early in your career versus later on in different scenarios, like those seasons of HR or just career in general, um, kind of help you determine who that community is. And I recall, starting out in my HR career, again, if you remember back from episode 1, I thought I was going to be a wedding planner. Definitely am not a wedding planner. Can maybe plan or make a good charcuterie board, but that's about as far as it goes. But I remember going to my very first, I was in Lincoln at the time, Lincoln HR meeting. I was in staffing and recruiting. I had kind of figured out, I think this is, this HR space is where I want to be, but I knew I needed to get connected. I knew that I didn't have all the resources that I needed, and I needed to build a community. And I just remember deciding to make a small, brave move, I guess, walking into one of the chapter meetings and walked up to the then president and said, I'm getting into HR. I'm really excited about building a network. Could we meet for coffee? And I'd love to be on the board. Like just a totally brave, move. Um, I want to get involved, right? Like I knew I wanted to get involved. And here I am, how many years later, still here. But that was the key for me in realizing the importance of that community. And from there on out, every season, we just navigated through Nebraska paid sick leave here recently, and that required a community. That was a different season for me in now navigating policies, right? And how we're going to roll this out, and every organization looking a little bit different. But at the end of the day, we were all in our own little islands coming together as one big island to help each other navigate what do we do here, and having that community already established through many, many years, go back to those people even from day one, still connected to those people in a very different season, and use them as resources in very different ways today.
I love that. I especially like how you were talking about firsts making you feel lonely, and then my first meeting, I did XYZ, and so a different kind of first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is the one you chose to break out of your shell and go, I'm just gonna dive headlong. And I love, I'm brand new. I'm ready to be bored.
Yeah, it had no idea what that probably really entailed at the time, but I'm like,
Right.
maybe there's an opportunity here.
Lesson learned. That's hilarious. When I was early in my career, uh, it was interesting because we had a shared services model at a corporate office, and then I worked in a call center for a timeshare company in Florida, and there were two HR staff. When I started there, we had 1,200 employees in the building and two of us. And by the time I moved out of that role, there were 2,400. It pretty much doubled in size and still just two of us. But what was interesting about that, and so I had no community. I didn't even know that certification was a thing. Again, my background was in music and in education and those types of things. So what's SHRM? I don't know. Oh,
Correct.
I'll read this journal, this paper journal, right? And I remember the first article I read in that journal was about how dangerous HR is as an occupation, and that when there's an active shooter, HR is shot first. I was like, what have I done? What have I done?
Definitely not the best first article to read.
Not the best introduction to my SHRM magazine. But when I was in that space, because I felt very alone as an entry level assistant, even though my boss was right through an open door right next to me. And my office, people had to pass through to get to her office. I still felt very alone because I didn't understand what the profession was. And we had very different levels, right? At the same time, after working with my first HR boss for a period of time, there was a shuffle due to some maybe inappropriate relationships in the company, and the HR management staff all got shuffled around because of
Fun.
an issue. Fun, fun, fun. HR is the worst.
Someone was on an island dealing with that as well.
Someone was on an island, and I had really liked that manager. She was very thoughtful. She was deliberate. You know, she had a very quiet, calm, steady energy. And I liked her a lot, but I didn't quite understand. I didn't get a lot of what is HR from her,
Sure.
right? And then in the shakeup, I felt even more alone because now I'm working with the person who was the shared services manager who I had dealt with, and what's this going to go like, right? Um, and I was very nervous and very wary because complete opposite personality, completely opposite. Where the first manager would take information in and just kind of spongy absorb it up and let it percolate for weeks before she signed things, right?
Sure.
For weeks. And then I get this new manager, and she's like, done, get this off my desk. Just
Moving things along.
completely and moving things along. And I remember sitting at my desk and watching her do her thing and thinking, huh, that's not how this person would have done it. My first manager,
Yeah.
we're not gonna name names, but that's not how this person would have done it. And I didn't realize you could do it effectively in two different ways. And
Sure.
so it was a very like eye-opening, awakening type of, oh, I could do this job and I don't have to like close off parts of myself to be more like my first manager, because I skewed more like the second manager, right? And so that was an interesting learning experience, but it was all on my own until I got to her and she explained to me, this is what SHRM is. This is what a career looks like. And guess what? We're going to send you to this HR training, and we're going to send you here and send you there. And all of a sudden, like, we're going, let's
Yeah.
go. And it was a completely different experience once I got tied in to someone who understood the HR community and who was all about driving and growth and those types of things. And so that was the time at which everything turned on for me. So
Sure.
um completely different.
Makes sense. You had an advocate though in getting you set up for success and knowing that it was going to take more than what they could do internally to help you be your most successful in the profession.
Yep. Yep. So those early years were something else. And it also makes me think about, what kind of mentor am I being to
Sure.
my employees, right? To the folks who work for me, and how am I developing them and getting them engaged with HR community and making sure that they're plugged in.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mentorship's so interesting to me too, because sometimes as the mentor, you assume or feel like, oh, I should have all the answers when, it's so much more about asking questions and getting curious in that. And I think some of my best mentors have been the people that continue to ask questions because the answer is somewhere in there, probably from me myself. But you almost are like, why do you just keep asking me more questions? Just tell me the answer. But you end up coming with, the best answers yourself sometimes in doing that, some of that seeking and soul searching. And I think we have great people within Amy, you and I have those people in our circle that I feel like ask us the right questions to find those answers and be advocates for us, and through us, I guess, as mentors versus just telling us what they think we should do or what the best answer is, because it might look different for everybody.
Right, and I think all of those questions have to do with context, right? It's
Yes.
I don't know, I don't work in your workplace.
Yes.
And that's the prescriptive part of that the outside of HR world expects of HR. Well, isn't there just a policy that everybody uses? No. There is not just a single best practice that applies to everyone. It needs to be tailored and molded for what's appropriate for our industry, our workforce, our time and place in society, and what's happening outside of these four walls.
Yeah.
There is no one best. And so when you work for folks who aren't in HR and don't understand that, you have to have your people to go back to and say, "Hey, what are you thinking?" And then providing them all the context.
Yeah.
The 5 whys, 5 level, why are you thinking this and why are you thinking that? And it sounds like this and why is this? And just going deeper and deeper. I remember having a colleague call and ask me about an applicant who had requested a language accommodation, had requested an SEL interpreter just to make sure that everything was clear. And I was like, "Oh, you you're hiring for an operating room." Like, I I don't know that that's appropriate. If they're feeling wary, I mean, there's no legal driver to provide an accommodation for language. So if you have a workplace where language is absolutely time bound and life threatening, like maybe someone who needs an extra language support is not somebody you want in an OR. And they went, huh, good point. Once we got there, right? And that's just my take. Someone else may have given them completely a completely different take on it, right? And that's what our community is about. That's what podcasts are about. That's what our one-off phone calls and our sniff test. Would you smell this for me, please?
Love the sniff test. It's the
Is
best.
this still good? Here, try this.
Right. What do you think?
Yeah. So, mhm.
Yeah. And we do a lot of the sniff tests with each other. And I think having the opportunity to also look at people, I think about our membership within HRAM and the industry. I think we were just having a conversation about this the other day that we have all these industry segments and people who maybe started their HR career in one industry and now have moved to a completely different industry. And while HR is HR, to some extent, right, there's still nuances based on your industry, and maybe the way you did it in construction looks different than the way healthcare does something more from an internal, or to your point, safety or things like that come into play,
And
based on the industry you're in. What's
startup
that?
startups are different than, 60
Right.
years in.
Right. What resources do we have? Have we even built that out yet? Do we even have we thought about having a policy for that? Should we have a policy for that? What is our procedure versus, oh, maybe it's time to change that because we've been doing the same thing for the last 60 years and maybe we should update that. So having those even peer groups within your industry to go to is something that is also helpful. I was just having a conversation actually earlier today with someone about this, who had worked public sector and is now in the private sector. And there's lots of nuances. While, yes, a lot stays the same, there's still differences in maybe how decisions get made or how quickly things move, or can we do this or that? And what channels do we have to go through? That it's so nice to be able to have someone to go to, even related to your specific area of HR2. Maybe you're in comp and benefits, maybe you're, a generalist, maybe you're a VP, whatever it is, staffing and recruiting, having somebody that you can bounce those things off of, specific to what you're doing in the current season you're in. That seems to be my theme today. What
current
island are you on today?
need to take a puddle jumper to get to the next one.
Right, yeah. Are you taking a boat, a raft? How are you getting there? The driftwood?
The drift.
Maybe you're just drifting to the next one.
Building a float out of a porta potty.
Yeah. Your island's better than mine. You have a more sophisticated porta potty system. That's nice, Amy.
Well, that's what isn't that what Tom Hanks used to build his little raft?
I don't even
Like it
remember.
was a sail. It was a porta potty, the outside shell of a porta potty that he
Maybe that is
stood up.
clearly need
Well,
to go back and watch the movie. All I can remember is Wilson. So
so when you call me and you're going, Wilson, I'll go, okay, she watched the movie.
it's now my new sniff test call to you.
There you go. There you go. What I love about having friends and colleagues out there to help me with the sniff test is that whether any of us likes to admit it or not, we have blind spots and we have biases, right? All of us do.
For sure.
And I think I think that's the great thing about all of my colleagues is that we're actively trying to work on them, right? They never really go away. We're always going to have preferences and forethoughts, like prejudging forethoughts about situations
Yeah,
based on our past experiences because we're human lizard brains and we're just built to analyze and scan for safety,
for
right?
sure.
So what I like is having someone my favorite, I didn't even ask for somebody's feedback and they go, hold up. Slow your roll. Let's back up just a minute and think about this, this, and this. And you go, oh, okay. That's your cohort holding you accountable and
Yeah,
making you better, right? And reminding you all the time that maybe you don't want to go into this meeting all guns blazing. Maybe that's not what you want to do in this moment, because
right.
you have to get yourself regulated before you go in. And
100%.
just kind of putting a let's put a pin in that until
Yes.
you've had some time to think about it.
Yes. Or you might end up further on the island. We call that emotional hijacking or talk about emotional hijacking, and it's not the best time to respond. It may be the time to phone the friend to say, "Hey, I'm feeling this way, and here's what I'm thinking about responding." And nope, let's wait. Let's sleep on it. Let's take a breather before you act.
I was watching a video today, social media something at lunchtime about never go to a meeting hungry. And they said,
True.
"Well, why? Why would you do that?" Because people say stupid things when they're hungry. Even if it's lunch, eat before you go so you don't say something ridiculous that will get you in trouble later. So I think that's good advice. That might be the best advice I've gotten this last couple of weeks.
That
Don't
might be
go
the takeaway from the whole
don't go in
podcast today. Just don't go to a meeting hungry.
if you're gonna get stranded on an island, take a cooler.
Take
So
the cooler for
take
sure. I think another piece, for you and I, Amy, we are pretty extroverted by nature in terms of meeting other people and making those connections. And I know for probably everyone watching today, the thought of walking into a crowded room and, just starting to interact or walk up to someone and just having to make that small talk probably isn't everyone's favorite thing. And so for those who maybe are like, I don't know about that, right? What are some things that you've seen maybe from an more introverted perspective
yeah.
of ways we can still build this pure community?
It's so funny that you ask that question, Jamie, because I am actually people would be surprised to know I'm very much an introvert. And
Mhm.
I'm good for a couple of hours and then a switch flips and I'm done.
Yep.
I'm done.
Yep.
And if I have a full day of out and about, it's October for us. If out and about in the pumpkin patch or, running errands and just one thing after another with a family weekend with company or something, the next day or two, sometimes three, no energy.
Yep.
Like, I have no spoons for anything. If
Sure.
I'll let you look up spoons. I've got no spoons. But I can't give you any spoons, I have none left. And so introversion is difficult in these situations. in my other life, I do consulting, and I have a client who I do some Gallup strengths work with, and they have an employee who they need to kind of present or represent the company at conferences, at a booth, vendor tables and all of those kinds of things. And she is just beside herself. One, for a language barrier. She is Brazilian, speaks the most beautiful Portuguese, and
Sure.
her English is stellar. And she knows all of the American pop hits and tunes from the 70s to today. I mean, she's amazing. But she's very nervous about being in an environment with new people, and afraid that her accent will get in the way.
Sure.
And I forget specifically what her strength is in StrengthsFinder, but I remember coaching her for her introversion the way I coached myself, kind of in that I pick one of my top 5 strengths. One of my top 5 is strategy, and I strategically plan how I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
Why and what result I expect to get from that, and how I'll use those results later to determine what I do next, right? So I'm taking my strategic hat and just planning out, how am I going to make this happen? So for me, when I went onto the board in membership, I wanted to meet all of the new members. And so we started hosting a new member table, and I got the list of the new members, and I shook their hand and took them to the table. If you have someone to sit with, by all means, don't feel like you have to sit here, but I'm here for you and happy to talk and be your person in this moment. But I also have to go greet everybody else. So I'm going to let you have some time to settle in, get your lunch, sit, get settled, and I'll go get more people for us to meet and then guide the table that way. So I went at it from a strategic perspective, understanding that my job as the host of this table, regardless of my introversion, I have a job to do,
Yeah.
and I'm going to go do the jobs because I'm a highly accountable person, and this is the strategy I set forth, and I have the discipline, another one of my top 5, the discipline to drive it through. I'm also top 5 learner and top 5 input, which are 2 different things, but I'm just curious. Curious.
Sure.
What do you do? Where do you work? All of that's fine. I'm like, what keeps you up at night?
Let's get deep right away.
Nobody got time for small talk. Let's talk about what's the biggest, my key question is, what's the biggest conundrum on your desk right now? What's your big project? Are you
Sure.
in open enrollment? Are you doing payroll taxes? Are you in a big hiring push? Right? Instead of
Sure.
talking about, what's your role and what are you doing, I start talking about the projects themselves. And people love to talk about themselves. I
Yeah.
love to talk about myself. Look at us, Jamie, talking
Right.
about
Well, you
ourselves.
probably end up doing a lot less of the talking because you've turned it over to them.
Correct. I just keep asking more questions. Really? And how
As a
did that
good
play out?
mentor does, as we talked
As a
earlier.
good mentor does. Look at us coming first full circle in our
Mhm.
professional circle of trust. Just keep asking more questions. How did that play out? Oh, really? Who else was involved? How was the decision made? What effect did that have? How was it communicated? You just keep going down layers and layers, and pretty soon people have told you their whole desk over the course of lunch, right?
Absolutely.
So that's my approach, and how I've worked with my own introversion and how I've coached others to do that. Now the key is, being a sibling of an extreme extrovert, is how do we how do we rein them back? Meh.
Yes. I fall somewhere in the middle. I'm with you. I gotta have a recharge after. I'm naturally energized by people being, out and about, doing all the things, but I do need that recharge time too. I think that's
Well,
an important one.
that's all a bed is just a recharging station, like we're phones, and we just
Yeah, uh, truly, yeah. Sometimes it might take a longer charge time, but that's so funny. I love that. The bed is the charger. It's
yeah.
great.
So,
Great
Jamie, do
point.
you have some thoughts about, not necessarily the introversion part, but
Mhm.
the strategic part, how people might go about building their professional circle of trust?
Mhm.
Where are some places they should drop in?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think a smaller, subset of HRAM specifically and ways to get connected to an area of interest is through committees. They're smaller, generally, groups of people in our membership that are in focused areas. Like Amy and I host Government Affairs Committee each month. And that's a group of people who maybe have a really significant interest in staying up on legislative updates or don't have a choice to based on the role they're in, and they're the adult that's being looked to in the room to figure these things out, and needs a crew to lean on in that.
Yeah.
We've got our DEI group that meets, or our committee that meets equally, I think, believe once a month as well on that. But, those interest groups that are already there within, we've got membership, for those who maybe want to be part of meeting the new members and greeting the new members and welcoming them and getting to know more about that. There's lots of committees, which is a smaller subset way to get involved and start meeting some people. Also looking at, who's on our board too, the HRAM board. If you go out to the HRAM website and you're looking for specific connections and reaching out to one-on-one feels more comfortable, that's something that we absolutely encourage you to do, even in the HRAM website and the portal that you can get into if you're a member. Otherwise, I think truly to your point, Amy, starting to look out there for people that might be in your industry, or maybe you connect with someone and have a follow-up coffee, right? Just keeping it smaller through your maybe even LinkedIn network, that you're out there kind of looking and deciding, okay, this person's in my industry. We maybe have mutual connections, and that's maybe a segue to be able to reach out and say, hey, I noticed you're connected to, this person, and we're in the same industry, probably dealing with some of the same HR challenges, would love to connect. So I think it's just figuring out, to your point, maybe being a little bit strategic about what is that messaging? Who am I reaching out to? Do I have specific areas of interest? And how do I kind of narrow that focus so it doesn't feel so big and overwhelming? Or just coming to a HRAM meeting and finding one of us, and
Right.
we'll
Right.
guide you.
That's
Hmm.
valid. Valid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Mhm.
I love the reference back to LinkedIn. I'm gonna kind of throw back to COVID times again. When I was we were kind of closed in, I was out on LinkedIn daily trying
Yeah.
to figure out how other people were handling situations.
Yeah.
Um, but I was also attending kind of national level employment law um, training sessions and those types of things. And what I found is in virtual spaces, people were just dropping their LinkedIn. We were so hungry to connect.
Yes.
Everybody would just drop in
Yes.
their profile, and everybody would just pick it up. And I probably have 500 HR type connections that are not local, and they're just all over. I see jobs from everywhere,
Yes.
looking for a friend,
Yes. Right.
and I like that it opens us up to what's happening outside of our immediate area,
Yes.
which is great, and just giving us a wider vision. But leveraging LinkedIn for me has been very beneficial, just to see what other HR thought leaders are doing out there. And usually that's where, they say that fashion and those types of things come from the coasts, right?
And
And they
move
get
into us here in the
right.
Midwest. Late
And
adopters.
paid leave was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It was starting out out in the Northeast and out in California, and then paid leave just
Yeah.
worked its way into the center of the country, and now it's a patchwork quilt of how we handle that across the country. But if you're following those things, you can see the trends coming.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. Well, and it's always interesting to me once you make a connection with one person, right? And you connect on, I don't know, some area of interest. It's always amazing. I always say Nebraska specifically, right? And I believe that honestly, as I've met people from other chapters around the country too, that circle becomes really small, and there's like 2 degrees of separation instead of, 7 or whatever they say, where one thing leads to another. Someone has a connection. You all figure out you both know somebody, or you've both been at some event together, or there's always some other kind of segue that comes from making just that initial connection, usually, once you've put yourself out there to do that. And LinkedIn's a great way, because we can see a little bit more about someone, maybe in things they're interested in, groups they're a part of, nonprofits they support, or different things like that that might be of interest to us, even outside of just HR, to your perspective.
It's interesting to me about all of the connections we make, not just LinkedIn, but also through HRAM and just general networking,
Mhm.
is that anytime I've had an ask of someone, "Hey, I need a little help with this. I need,
Yes.
do you know so and so?" I have never, not once, had a person tell me no.
So true.
And yet, our natural inclination, again, as lizard brain humans, is to anticipate the rejection.
For sure.
That if you ask for someone, "Hey, I'm needing some education on XYZ," or, "Hey, I'm applying to graduate school and I would love it if you would be willing to write a positive recommendation for me."
Yes. It's a hard one.
I Right? I
Mhm.
just did this last week. And so, not from sorry, I didn't ask. I was the I'm not going back
You
to
were
school.
asked. Yeah.
This girl done with school. And so, but I've never had someone tell me no. Now, I have been kind of ghosted with no response. Totally fine. But, like, the very worst thing, even if someone did tell you no, if you asked for some mentorship or some connection or whatever it is you need, the worst thing they can say is no.
For sure.
Okay. And usually the no is going to come with, "I'm not the best person for that. Let me connect you to this person."
Right.
And so I would encourage folks who are out there needing some guidance, whether it's on a, specific issue on your desk or education or career development or whatever it is, just reach out. Seriously, just
Mhm.
reach out. People are wanting to connect with you and show up for you. You know why? That's what we're meant to do. That's where we
Yeah.
light up. All of us, we're all HR people and we light up helping other people. That's, aside from falling into it, that's why we got into it and stayed in it, is because we believe in the work and want to help people. So,
Absolutely. I love that.
so,
It's great advice, Amy.
well, thanks. Hey, I think my wine glass is empty, my dear. How about while we go get a second pour, we let our ad roll go through, and I'm gonna encourage everyone not to fast forward, just let it breathe, please, it's not very long, and these folks are the reason that we get to come to you, every episode, so stay with us.
My staff connects the right people and the right companies. Fast, friendly, and focused on results. From temporary staffing to executive recruitment, the My Staff team knows Nebraska business and delivers a job done right. If you've got a big project coming up, don't stress your team. Call Virginia Frazee at My Staff. Omaha businesses trust Virginia to find the right temporary, permanent, and legal talent fast. For skilled corporate support that delivers results, call 402 614 1441. Whatever your hiring need or career move, My Staff is your employment partner for a job done right. Visit mystaff.com or call 402 614 1441. Because at My Staff, we're not just recruiters, we're partners in your success story.
So we've talked a lot, Amy, about this community and building this community and reaching out and finding ways to connect. And truly, one of the best ways that we can do that, and the best way Amy and I can get you connected, is through our local chapter. So, one of the first steps is really going out to HRAM's website, or reaching out to one of us, or another person that is already a member of HRAM. That can always make things a little bit easier too, or your own local chapter in the city that you're in, looking for what that nearest chapter might be, and just joining and attending a meeting or a committee meeting, or some other, event that your chapter has. HRAM has lots of ways to get connected outside of just those chapter meetings. There's meetups, there's coffees, there's lunches and First Friday events that are a little less maybe program focused, but just truly networking focused and in a much smaller setting where you get to maybe a little bit more intimately know a couple of those fellow HR professionals. So go out to the website. HR Nebraska website has all of the chapters listed too if you're listening from afar outside of our greater Omaha area, and check out your local chapter.
That's awesome. The circle of trust is the one that you build, right? So lots of us have our personal circle of trust, folks at home, people we trust with our children, our parents, our finances, whatever, right? We have that circle of trust, but you need the same thing at work and within your professional community. So let us help you build that professional circle of trust. We will wrap you in and hold you up when you need that help. Don't do HR alone. Okay. You are not by yourself. You are not on an island. You are not an island. HR needs community. Okay. And if you're thinking, yeah, I'm going to make an excuse about it, we're bringing you the top 5 excuses that HR pros give for not joining their local chapter. So here's number 1. I don't have time.
You don't have time not to.
It's just networking.
It's community, Amy. It's cocktail parties.
It's too expensive.
One resource call will save you hours.
I already know HR.
But the laws change daily, as we know. You need to stay sharp.
But I don't know anyone.
That's the point. We've been talking about coming to meet your circle.
Okay, so all of that to say, for all of our listeners, we will save you a seat and maybe a spot on the roster. So give us a call and let us know that you're coming, and we will meet up with you. We would be happy to be your friend if you're there by yourself. Also, if you're struggling with how to position your local chapter membership as a value add to your company for them to pay for it, we have some stuff for that too. So give us a shout. That'll be an in-person conversation. Okay.
Good point.
So here's to the teams that keep us sane, steady, and supported.
May we always remember victories are sweeter when shared.
And losses are easier when carried together.
Cheers to HR, our League of Leaders. Cheers.
My staff connects the right people and the right companies, fast, friendly, and focused on results. From temporary staffing to executive recruitment, the My Staff team knows Nebraska business and delivers a job done right. Looking for your next HR role in Nebraska, Iowa, Colorado, or South Dakota? Everyone knows Kim Lynch at My Staff because she connects great people with great careers. Let Kim help you land your next HR dream job. Email Kim at mystaff.com. Whatever your hiring need or career move, My Staff is your employment partner for a job done right. Visit mystaff.com or call 402-614-1441. Because at My Staff, we're not just recruiters, we're partners in your success story.
HR